you cannot wait until 2027 because by then these guys are gonna thief and thief and thief. What needs to happen is that the momentum needs to continue.
Yeah,
it's now or never.
Yeah,
because this guy and his and Akina and that chokora of ours, that chokora, Sudi, they need to go. They need to bounce. But I'm like, okay, fine.
Now looking forward with the situation, of course, it's been a week of calm, and whenever there's a calm, like there's a storm that's brewing. Mgambo ikilia kuna jambo. So I think yes,
that doesn't sound good.
No, there's always a storm that whenever there's a calm,
our hearts can't take any more.
No, whenever there's no. I mean, this by the way, this thing is non-stop because if it stopped.
Correct.
This guy will finish people.
Yes, the movement.
We've had people who've been killed. We still have people who are missing, people who are being abducted. These things are still happening. Now looking forward with the situation, of course, it's been a week of calm, and whenever there's a calm, like there's a storm that's brewing. Mgambo ikilia kuna jambo. So I think yes,
that doesn't sound good.
No, there's always a storm that whenever there's a calm,
our hearts can't take any more.
No, whenever there's no. I mean, this by the way, this thing is non-stop because if it stopped.
Correct.
This guy will finish people.
Yes, the movement.
We've had people who've been killed. We still have people who are missing, people who are being abducted. These things are still happening.
Yes.
So, I mean, just looking forward.
No, you're right.
One thing that I'd like to see, yes, of course, we have to keep up with the pressure, the mandamano, like the different forums on X, Bunge la Mwananchi, and all these other spaces where people are really agitating for proper economic change, end of corruption, because that's really what's killing Kenya. Out of the 4 trillion budget we have every year, a whole 1 trillion goes to budgeted corruption.
Thank you.
That's where you see, chokoras like Oscar Sudi flossing, like 17 million shilling watches, when people are out here struggling. This right here, this is the moment to confront this, because if we're not going to confront this now, we'll never be able to. So I think going forward, I think what needs to happen, and we're very sensitive at what the mobilizers are doing, what people are doing on the ground. We really appreciate that. But one very important thing that I think people need to start planning right now is registering to vote. And before you register to vote,
take your ID.
First of all, IBC needs to be constituted, which the process is already going, not very smooth, but it's moving. But you must have your ID. So if you're Kenyan and you do not have an ID, please make sure you go get your ID. Of course, you see there was that issue where they started charging for the ID, so they're making it more difficult for people to get the IDs. They started charging exorbitant fees for the IDs.
How?
Yeah, it's 1,000 shillings. I think it used to be 100 bob. And now it's moved to 1,000 shillings.
I paid,
it's moved to 1,000 shillings. So that's right there. That's a way of barring a lot of people from getting their IDs. Now, when you don't have an ID, you can't register to vote. So I think that's a campaign that needs to start now to get people to have IDs. If you're here in the diaspora, people in the diaspora, especially who have green cards and American passports, they tend to neglect, like the validity of their Kenyan passports.
And you shouldn't.
And their Kenyan IDs. You should not do that. Please, 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 make sure you have a valid passport. Even if you're not traveling, even if you're not planning to travel, make sure you have a valid passport. Because when that window comes to register in the diaspora, you want to be ready.
I was going to ask what valid means, because there is valid for travel and valid for this case.
No, a valid passport, a passport that's not expired.
A valid.
Okay, so normally you can use your passport as a form of ID, even if it's actually expired. Up to a certain point.
To register.
No.
Yeah.
As a valid ID, not for travel. No, there's a big difference. Okay. That's why I was asking that. That's why I was asking
to register.
To
register
to vote.
To vote.
Yes,
the passport has to be valid. It cannot be expired.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And you also have. They had said last time when we registered that you could also use your ID.
So
Now,
so originally, originally
it was your.
it was you could not use your passport.
correct.
Yeah, originally,
Correct.
which was a way of disenfranchising diasporans. But Omtata, man, this guy Omtata went to court.
Omtata is the truth.
But now the problem, it was in the middle of the process. So some
Correct.
people already had that information that
Yes.
if I don't have an ID, I
can't
can't
vote.
register.
And they never
register.
showed.
Yeah.
And then in the middle of the exercise, the rules, the
The
game
rules changed, and you see there were very few registration centers, DC, New York, and LA. So
Correct.
people had to travel, people had to plan travel and everything.
Yes.
So I think people have to be ready now. Before those dates come, before that short window comes, because IBC, especially the diaspora, they like throwing surprises.
They will throw surprises.
Yeah.
Not that they
So
like.
now-
Those jokers will show up in
So
January.
they
and
came 2 weeks before Korea.
It was a.
They opened a
they
two-week
gave us
window.
about. It was a 2-week window, and then
Yeah, 'cause I remember I was
it was
in Kenya.
March.
I was
it
in
March?
Kenya when they
February.
announced it.
It was in February.
No, I was in Kenya when they announced it. I
Which
think it was
was-
like the second week of January.
Yeah, is when
And then they
announced,
said
yes.
we are coming there in like less than 3 weeks in the first
Correct.
week of February.
Correct.
Yeah,
And they
within
were
2 weeks.
and they were here for 2 weeks, and then August we voted.
Yeah, and then in August we voted. So it was difficult for people who had not planned, people who had not.
And somewhere in between that, they had to verify what they had taken. So if they had screwed up somewhere along the line, and you were one of those who was screwed up, you only found out at the point in time when you were actually when you were actually coming in to vote,
Yes.
because you would not have been on the voter roll,
They
even though
did
you
something.
had. Because there were some people who had some Madagodanios going on over there. Ali saw that in person. Remember?
Yes.
There were people,
yes.
and if you had not come with whatever you
Whatever you registered with,
that
yeah.
shitty, you remember they were giving us
They're giving a slip.
a little slip.
Yeah.
Then it became an identification card.
Yes.
Initially it started as a
it's
slip.
whatever was showing on the Kim's kit. If the Kim's kit showed passport, you could not show up with an ID.
No, you couldn't.
If
yes.
the Kim's kit showed you registered with an ID, you could not show up with a passport. So those are the things that I think we now need to start preparing at a constituency level. I mean, of course, the diaspora is wide, but then we need to figure out how to start pushing people to get their passports ready, so that by the time when the time for registration comes, because there's a possibility of having a recall election. A recall election may not involve us in the diaspora, but anything, like from
if
a
it involves the
referendum,
president.
anything that involves the president,
Yeah.
yes, that will involve us.
Yes.
So I say let's be prepared, because I think that is the place where if people talk, then we shall not be able, the powers that be will not be able to ignore.
But you
remember
see-
what happened back in 2005 when the first referendum, when the people spoke, Kibaki had to release more than half of his cabinet.
He fired the cabinet.
He fired the cabinet.
All of it. All of them.
He fired the cabinet. So that's why I'm saying this is the place where we have to show. People have to come with a show of force.
But you see-
because I feel like the political class is still not getting it.
But here's the thing, Ali.
Yeah.
And I was talking to somebody actually just before we started the show, before you guys came in, and he was talking about how, you cannot wait until 2027, because by then these guys are gonna thief. What needs to happen is that the momentum needs to
It's now.
continue.
Yeah.
It's now or never.
Yeah.
Because this guy and Akina and that chokora of ours, that chokora, Sudi, they need to go.
They need to bounce.
They need to bounce. But I'm
Well,
like, okay, fine. There's that one, but then there's also there's a process and a procedure, and those are the things that those are the realities that we have to deal with. There's a recall procedure, but IBC has to be constituted in order for the recall procedure to be effective.
Yeah.
IBC na constitualini.
So they're saying within 90 days. I think it's within 90 days of when those names were submitted to Parliament. So
within 90 days of the names being submitted.
No. Within 90 days. Within
Yeah,
90
that's what he's
days.
asking, yeah.
I think within 90 days they have to name the people who are gonna be the IBC commissioners.
So within 90 days of the signing.
No. Within 90 days of when the names were submitted. The names were submitted, I believe, last week or the week before last week.
Oh, they did submit it?
Yes, they did submit the name of the committee that will be
proposed,
will be constituted in selecting those commissioners.
Oh,
Yeah, so that's what's
okay.
what's been because there's a committee, because they, you know, like the majority
basically
coalition from the minority
the interview
coalition,
panel.
Yeah, the interview panel, religious groups, and then they will nominate. They will nominate
which
a couple
in itself
of names.
was causing problems. But
it was causing problems.
But
nominating the nominators was causing problems. So when the nominators nominate the nominees, it's gonna cause more problems.
Like Madhogodhanio. Yes.
So we are waiting for that. It's not gonna be a smooth process.
No, it's not.
But regardless of whatever quality of people we are given, let us be ready. I think that's just what people need to drum in and people need to understand. And I know Mika wanted to say something. I'm gonna read a couple of comments before Mika says something. Washeke says Sudi is tuned in. Yes, tell him to tune in and tell him to come up at Kilimanjaro Studios, where we are gonna deconstruct him vipande. And then Washeke says they can't register to vote without IDs, and the government hasn't issued IDs in months, which is very problematic.
Yes.
I think that's another big issue that needs to be addressed. And then Slay is saying, what if you have the old school ID? I finally renewed my Jamhuri passport. I think you're good if you have your passport, but also just go to the Kenyan Embassy website and just figure out what you need to do to get your.
What does she mean by
ID.
old school ID?
Yeah,
because I don't think the ID that she has is the ID that she has is
not
valid.
The
ID number is changing your mosh.
No. I think the old school ID.
I use my old one.
See how mosh.
Okay. The ID that I originally got.
Passport.
Yes, and the Slay doesn't have that, so it's valid.
Okay, so Slay, you can confirm that for us.
It's valid.
Yeah.
Ile Slay yako nayo ni ile mimi niko nayo. Zile zenu zenye zilikuwa
unapiga nayo. So picha yenu ni ya color ama picha yenu ni ya black and white.
Yeah. And then Slay says or rather Washeke says old school ID is still valid. And then Slay says, let's hope I can make to DC ama LA. And then Washeke says, let's plan to go together. This can be a very good reunion for the OneMicShow fan club. So we can start preparing right now. And then we can take a big house, a big
Airbnb.
What do you call Airbnb? Ama we can convert a Bosch big house to an Airbnb.
You said
then,
it.
And then we'll figure things out there. And then we'll start eliminating people like Big Brother. But anyway, Washeke again says, or rather Evans Marube, saying Gen Z are demanding 3 slots in IBC on Nane protests. Okay, I'm interested to see in what's happening, what's going to happen in the Nane protests. So that's where we are. And Mika had something you wanted to say. Mika, twende kazi.
No, me, I was asking why you guys don't like Sudi, but anyway.
I mean, we don't we don't dislike him. We just dislike Sudism.
Engineer.
No,
there's a name you've called him right now. Anyway.
It's this guy.
Chokora. Hiyo ni one mic. Unaanza kudekelea mimi. Yeah. But yeah, so I think it is important. I will repeat this. It's pertinent that we are prepared to fight this politically. I like this movement as it's going, and the pressure and the belly under fire that the current leadership is on. But then it has to be converted to something at some point.
So